How's it going, Starseekers? Welcome back to the channel and to another review, this time for, wait for it, Prison Life Simulator 2022 World Fight Battle GTA Ultimate. And that kind of title can mean only one thing. That's right. Our friends over at Midnight Works are back with another absolute gem of a game, and in this one you play as an inmate and have to survive daily life at a maximum security prison, building your authority, tussling with other inmates, and doing whatever you can to make your mark and avoid becoming Mr. Big's baby gravy deposit station. But being a Midnight Works game, I had my reservations about this one. So let's dive right on into it and see what's what. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more. So, as per usual with these games, it isn't going to be one of my standard review formats with this one, and instead it's going to be more of a game of spot the bullshit as I take you through the entirety of the game. Now, if you haven't heard of Midnight Works before, allow me to introduce you with a single statement. Midnight Works are the biggest fucking scammers ever to grace the Switch eShop. And if you don't believe me, you can make your own decision come the end of this video, and if you still don't believe me, make sure to watch my previous two videos covering the Cop Simulator and Jet Fighter Simulator games. Now, as per usual, there's been no effort spared in making this one entirely playable whilst docked using controllers, and for any kind of menuing in the game you're going to have to use the touchscreen, which by now is standard practice in any of the shoddy ports. The game opens though to no fanfare whatsoever, and in fact no audio whatsoever, as a prison van crawls up to the gates and drops you off, and allow me to present Bullshit Exhibit A, an eShop screenshot showing armed guards escorting multiple inmates into the prison, but there were no armed guards and I was the only prisoner. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I like to test the boundaries of games, and in this case I can tell you that the game in fact has no boundaries, as instead of following the guard's orders and entering straight into the prison, I instead decided to casually just roll my way through the gates of the prison, and then proceed to take in this magnificent view before hopping off the edge of this floating penitentiary into the abyss. Unfortunately, the downside to this was that I had no way of getting back up there, and the game actually has no way to quit out, and so I had to completely reboot it and start over. This time round though, I headed into the prison and was told to leave all of my clothes and switch into my prison attire, but I chose not to, and the game made no effort to enforce this, so instead I wandered straight on in there, got myself into a bit of a tussle with an inmate and eventually a guard, who promptly laid the smackdown on me with his nightstick, sending me back to the start of the game again. For some reason this time round though, there was a countdown timer which appeared on the screen, and so I decided to wait it out and see what would happen whilst staring out Shady McShades over here. Spoiler alert, nothing happened, the game just restarted again. So, after complying with the rules and switching into a snazzy little orange outfit, I headed into the prison and had a little bit of a wander around. The guards and my fellow inmates took absolutely no notice of me, and I was even able to go and work a shift in the kitchen, serving up a big old pot of nothingness to the zombified diners, and for this I earned myself some noodles, which if you didn't know is the standard black market currency in prison these days, because cigarettes, hard drugs and mobile phones are far too commonplace, and what people are really craving for nowadays is a tasty bowl of ramen. Anyway, the game insisted that I go and take my meal, but the markers actually directed me towards my cell, where I finally got to meet the prison's Mr. Big, this Wolverine looking motherfucker with an eagle tat who promptly decided to stove my face in. After another restart, I headed back to give it another go. But then I realised that the game hadn't actually restored my health. However, I also realised that the game didn't stop me from moving around or performing actions whilst text box were on the screen, and so I smacked the shit out of Mr. Big and he couldn't do a damn thing about it. Unfortunately, once again this wasn't the right course of action to take, as although he lay sparked out and no longer a threat, I had in fact soft locked the game again, and so back it was for another full restart to fix things and refill my health. Now, after heading back and having a spot of fisticuffs, I was then told by Mr. Big that in order to survive I had to be in a gang, namely his gang, and it's at this point that the real daily life as a prison inmate begins. You start by going to roll call, saying good evening, getting told to go to sleep and then doing so, all the while everyone else just goes about the daily business. At the start of each day, you have to head off to the kitchen to have your daily meal, or just stir into space like all of the other zombies, and then you head back to your cell where Mr. Big awaits to give you a mission, though of course accepting these requires a spot of undocking and menuing. Now my first mission in the game was to drop off an envelope to Jose, a Latino looking chappie with a bunch of arm tattoos, though like all characters in this game, his profile picture looks fuck all like his actual character model, which doesn't appear to be even of the same ethnicity. Jose though sends me off to bribe Sergeant Bill, who is presumably the prison warden, and along the way I meet a couple of hard cases who want a piece of me. Being a bit of a pacifist though, I run away like a little bitch seeking the assistance of a guard, but none of them seem to actually give a shit and refuse to even acknowledge my situation. Luckily for me though, the modern day prisoner is unable to actually punch below its waistline, nor can it open doors, and so I exploited these vulnerabilities to my advantage, knocking them both out before heading up to meet Sergeant Bill, who was supposedly playing a game of cards, though the dealer appeared to have suffered some kind of full body paralysis mid-deal, so he never actually gets to finish the game. While here I also discovered 2 illusionary doors which led to 2 dark rooms containing the sum total of fuck all, and after heading back to Jose he dropped me some noodles for my effort, which I then decided to gamble, winning more noodles before returning to Mr. Big to give him his cut. Day 2 in the prison saw another morning meal, which again I didn't feel like eating, and another mission where I once again had to speak to Sergeant Bill in order to gain access to the outside. Bill was a bit of a dick though and demanded that I pay him the fee of a single stamp, but I decided I wasn't going to pay him 1 stamp, and instead I was going to use the good old text box exploit, walking away from him and out into the fresh air whilst retaining said postage token. Now, out in the yard I met Big D, a hench looking big black dude whose in-game character model has to be the biggest mismatch in the entire game, with Big D looking more like a toothy Middle Eastern guy than someone of African American origin, and this is despite there actually being several other black character models in the game which could have been used, but by now this probably doesn't surprise you one bit. Now, for your information, Big D allows you to use the gym kit for a fee of 2 noodles, which in turn raises your strength rating, though neither this nor the other 2 character stats have any impact on gameplay or in fact any meaning whatsoever. While outside though, I seized the opportunity to partake in some extensive exploration of the surrounding area, but aside from some empty guard towers and a few sets of levitating pull-up bars, there was very little to see out here, and so I headed back inside and to the comfort of my bed. Now, aside from the daily missions, you're able to do odd jobs about the place to earn a few extra noodles. These include feeding the zombie diners, doing a spot of clothes washing in the prison's laundry room, and skating about in the yard with a broom, and the noodles that you earn can be spent at an in-game shop, though again most of the items serve no purpose whatsoever, and any of the weapons or items of clothing cost a full stack of 15 noodles. Now the game's next mission had me trading some canned goods to some guy in the library in exchange for some knowledge experience, and a stack of comic books which I believe served as an arbitrary item for the next delivery mission. The next day I was told that I needed 3 juice, 1 sugar and 1 yeast for the mission, and it was at this point that I thought the game was bugged, as after several days and attempts the mission still failed to start, but it turned out that I just had to buy a portion of sugar from the shop to get it to trigger. This mission though had me once more headed down to the laundry room, dodging past these 2 tossers along the way again, and upon arrival I met a guy called Mo, who informed me that I could make some special juice in a nearby room, which apparently contained all of the instruments I needed. In fact, the room contained no instruments apart from a sink and a couple of worktops, but regardless of this, I was actually able to make the juice successfully, and then I headed back to Jose where I was able to sell it for a full stack of 15 noodles. Now it was at this point that I had a decision to make. Either return to Mr. Big and give him his cut of the loot, or alternatively I could get myself some of that sweet swag at the shop. and I decided that for 15 noodles, this rather dapper looking red bandana was far too fashionable to pass up on. After returning to Mr. Big expecting another beatdown, it turned out that neither him or the game cared that I'd blown our profits, and that this was in fact the last mission of the game anyway, and I was then free to live out the rest of my days in the prison, continuing with my daily routine, or alternatively I could start a new game, or alternatively I could head out into the yard, grab my trusty broomstick, and Harry Potter the fuck out of this joint for a life in the abyss. So yeah, that is it, that's the game in its entirety. So let's now take a quick checklist of how much bollocks this eShop listing is spouting. Starting with the screenshots, again they're hardly what I'd call representative of the in-game content. You'll find no armed guards, either ground-based or atop the empty guard towers, and that mock-up shot of the punishment cell is practically laughable. When it comes to the game's description, well, there's a lot to cover here. Apparently we can spend noodles to power up our prisoner, bollocks, bribe guards to evade punishment, again, bollocks, recruit crew members and assign them orders, double fucking bollocks, consequences depend on your choices, dozens of items affecting the plot, make inmate friends whom you can trust, bollocks, 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 and in fact almost every single statement in the game's description is an outright fucking lie. Yet again, Midnight Works have lived up to the reputation by presenting customers with a complete scam of a game, and as usual Nintendo have opted to just stand by and let it happen. So what have we learned from this one that we didn't already know? Well, to be honest, probably nothing at all. When a game uses the GTA font in its thumbnail and has to mention GTA in the title just to appear in searches and get clicks, you know that they're grasping at straws with this one. It does however continue to baffle me how Nintendo assert no control over the eShop or the content that publishers like Midnight Works are trying to sell people, and I guarantee you that if you buy this game and then try to ask for your money back, they'll then refuse to refund you, and that like the other games from this so-called developer, Prison Life Simulator will not be removed from the eShop. Now if you care about any of this, I implore you to get the word out there that this kind of shit is going on, either by making a post about it somewhere, publishing an article if you do that kind of thing, or even just pinging an email to Nintendo, because as it stands, it seems like I'm the only person who creates Nintendo Switch content who's actually kicking up a fuss and doing something to warn people about potential scams like this. If I was able to help you out though, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like, and feel free to share this video wherever you can. And if nothing else, hopefully it proved to be an entertaining watch. As always though, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below, and if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing to the channel. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and game on.